Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of NTPA Replay, a program where we'll take a look back and a look ahead at the performances of NTPA competitors over the course of a competition week.
I'm Dom Santina along with John Dunlap, getting ready to go with our first class. John, if you want to go ahead and kind of give us a little recap of what happened in Rockwell, Iowa.
Okay, let's have a look first at the top three runs of the 10,000-pound pro stock class. The winner with this run, Mark Lawyer, and wrapped up with a vengeance, took over the lead from Danny Schmucker's Rampage in the class. 4 hooks later, Rob Russell became the closest threat to Lawyer with his Workhorse Pro Case IH. And then incoming points leader, Brandon Simon, pulled into third with Loud and Heavy on the 11th hook of 13 in the class. So after 6 sessions of pro stock, but only 2 competitive hooks in 2021, given the 4 rained-out sessions, Simon's Loud and Heavy and Rob Russell's Workhorse are tied atop the standings. By following up his 6th in Toma with a big win in Rockwell, Mark Lawyer sits 3 points behind the co-leaders. And Team Swanevec, which includes Dad Jason's bootlegger, as well as son Spencer's new entry this year, Coal-Fired, are 7 and 9 points back in 4th and 5th places, respectively. And that's just ahead of the pro stock rookie Brandon Simon's second entry, Loud and Loaded. In all, the top 10 pros are separated by just 14 points, and that goes down through some traditional powers in the class, namely Danny Schmucker's Rampage, sitting 7th, as well as the Mac Nasty and Mac Daddy entries of the Connie and Ray team in 8th and 9th, and Robbie and Esden Lemke's New Generation Plus in an unconventional 10th for them at this point in the season.
Yeah, John, I was looking at the points while we were getting ready for this show. Very tight in all of our classes. I mean, when you go through, it hasn't helped the fact that the last 4 sessions have been rained out. The 2 in Franklin, Indiana, the last 2 in Rockwell. So points are really tight, and especially in this class as well, less than 10 points, as you mentioned there, for a majority of the class.
Yeah, it has to be really frustrating for guys to not be able to make up any points. I mean, just 15 at a time for everybody with that rain falling so frequently thus far this year.
Yeah, and I know Mark Lawyers mentioned that at the end of his poll in Rockwell, they actually broke the rear end. So it'll be interesting to see how he can get that rear end repaired and ready to go here as we head into our next poll session. And maybe he's one of the guys that are lucky enough to actually be praying for those rainouts to give him some extra time to work on that tractor and get it ready to go for this week.
Yep, definitely. And also, as you look down through, there's some teams that have had some success in the past in Chapel Hill. Of course, the last time out, Darren Hunt was your winner and had won 3 in a row at that point in Chapel Hill. Pretty rare for a red pro stock. But prior to that, back in 2017, Danny Schmucker's father, Kevin, swept the event with a Get Her Done deer. So they may have a pretty good read on that track, and Danny might be able to elevate himself in the standings with a couple of good passes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. Exciting to watch that pro stock class for sure.
Indeed. Well, on to the multi-charger diesels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, let's have a look at the super stock diesel division. So Roger Peterson in Rockwell and just another one pushed the leader cone ahead by over 25 feet beyond Steve Burge's then leading 330 on lock and load. Peterson held on to capture his very first Grand National win. But on hook number 6 in the class, Travis Schlabach's Bone Twister, which was sitting second in points behind Mike Beck's High Tech Redneck, moved into second behind Peterson. Unfortunately, Beck had to scratch, and that made Schlabach the point leader at that moment in time. But then Kent Payne, who was just 1 point back of Schlabach, split the difference between the 2 leaders with this class wrapping pass on the Super Rooster to forge a tie atop the Superstock Diesel standings. The Superstock Diesels had better weather luck in Dodge City than the pros had in Franklin, and that means that they've made it down the track twice as often, 4 hooks to 2 over the pro stocks. But it's still way too early to pick a favorite. Esden Lane and Diggin' Fever are only 1 point behind Schlabach and Payne, sitting in third. Steve Burge sits fourth with lock and load at -4, and Beck's scratch has him down 12 points, but hardly out of the race this early in the season. And there is a race, though, for that all-important 5th place Enderley transfer slot, because right now Mike Beck has to fend off Tabitha DeMars' Smoking Hot Deer, who is just a half point behind the Redneck. And word is that Esden's Redline Fever will be back in action in Chapel Hill, the repaired block.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. You know, we talked about points just there in just a little bit ago, and tied first in the points here again. And a couple of things to mention. Kent Payne had some real big trouble in Dodge City. He actually had major damage after Friday night and Saturday night's pole. So good to see him get back out on the track and have a good clean pass there with 351 feet. Third place pole. And Roger Peterson always got it. It's always a fun time to see guys get their first career Grand National win.
Most definitely. Yep, well deserved.
All right.
Okay, on to minis.
On to minis.
Okay. All right, let's now see how the NTPA's flyweight division settled things in Rockwell. With the sixth hook of the 20-entry class, Kimberly Kwame rolled by the test puller and defending champion Ken Vini. Kwame's well-oiled machine towed the Iron Boy transfer past 366 feet to take a commanding lead in the modified mini class at Rockwell. At the midpoint of the class, the beast of burden of Adam Kester got the closest to what appeared to be an untouchable distance for Kwame. Kester's teammate, Ron Toby Tobin, helped clinch a strong weekend for the Kester racing team by finishing fourth with Walk the Line. But it was shades of 18 months ago in Cloverdale, Indiana, which was the last time Kwame, the former garden tractor puller, held a lead going into the final hook of a class. Back then, it was Bruce Slaw who denied her her first GN class win, and this time Jeff Guza pulled off an almost unimaginable upset with Grandpa's Disaster by just 3 inches over Kim. It was Jeff's first time in the seat of Son Brian's Mini after years of driving the Flirtin' with Disaster Agco Light Super. For the second time in as many chances, a Region 3 regular stunned the Grand National boys and girls on the final hook. Back in Toma, it was Nathan Hoffman's Shakin' Shamrock with an emotional win on the final hook of the class. And now it was Guza, demonstrating that the gap between Grand National and Regional National Minis is narrowing every season. As far as the standings go, Kester's third place finish vaulted him 1 point past Bruce Slaw and Show No Mercy, and CJ Grashik's pile driver for the point lead, while Toby and then Dylan Bunnage's Phoenix round out the top 5 at just 2 and 3 points back. It's sure to be an emotional weekend for the Kester team in Chapel Hill as they return to the site of founder Larry's last drive before his tragic overnight passing 2 whole years ago. And to this day, for all of us at NTPA, it's still tough to see a mini class go by without Larry.
Yeah, Kim's pass there in the mini class put her at that time 25 feet in front of everybody else, and it for sure looked like she was going to get the win. But I was working that side of the track, and it was awesome to see Jeff. And you know, not many times you get dramatics here in tractor pulling, but when the last tractor pulls up on the track and wins the class, it's pretty fun to watch. And congrats to the Disaster Pulling team. And Jeff started pulling quite a bit ago, back in 1970, and now to pick up a win. And like you said there, John, we want these guys to move up into the Grand National class, and if these guys in the regional class are hanging with them, look out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want you to think that happens every single week, Tom, but the 2 mini classes you've seen in person so far, you've seen it twice. Now, with that last hook win, just a stunner in both cases. Of course, in the case of Nathan, he has already had a Grand National win at Hutchinson a couple of years before that. So it wasn't a complete surprise, but it had to be a surprise as much for Jeff as for anyone. First time in the seat of that mini and driving it right out the end.
Yep, absolutely. A great pass, 366 feet. Got all he could, hooked it up well.
And for it to only be 3 inches past Kim, I mean, you just look at that and say, how could 2 distances that long be still that close? And sure they were.
Well, and that was the crazy thing about Rockwell. They talk about being a power track, but I mean, for probably the first time that I've been working here at the NTPA, did we have more than that one. There was 4 or 5, maybe 6 times that they were within inches of each other, and that makes it really exciting for a fan's perspective. It
does. It definitely does. Okay, good on minis?
I'm good on minis.
On to unlimiteds.
All right.
Now, how about those unlimiteds? Finishing second, David Richardson set the mark to beat at 319 feet 3 inches. It was impossible to judge, though, at the time whether that would be a winning hook, but it was definitely going to be at least enough to put Richardson back on course after a rough 7th-place finish in Toma in his only appearance. And in 3rd place in the class, Steve Bollinger's Money Pit triple was a little bit underhorsed, but that can prove to be beneficial on some tracks where the 4 and 5 engine limiteds contend to one wheel. It's still surprising that Bollinger's 284, though, held up for 3rd place. So who is your winner? Well, scoring his first win since Toma in 2019 was 4-time class champion and 5-time Grand National champion overall, Chuck Knapp and Screamin' D, which drove by Richardson on the 3rd hook. Like Richardson, Knapp took the opportunity to get his 2021 back on track after a disastrous out-of-bounds disqualification in Wisconsin that buried him in 8th. Point leader and defending champion Joe Ader was 4th with Polar Air behind those 3 leaders, and that was sufficient to maintain his top spot in the standings. A 3-way tie now stands among Knapp, Richardson, and Mark Cole's Gambler. They are all 4 points back, while Ricky Rose, plagued to date with some awful engine issues, is hanging there at 7 points behind and still within striking distance with a lot of season to go.
Yeah, Richardson, actually all these guys made a lot of changes for this week and for this season. David Richardson and Foursome had to do some engine changes to gain some more traction. Let me tell you, Steve Bollinger's pass was absolutely fun to watch. He hooked on the left side of the track, powered that machine all the way down the track, and he ended on the right corner, right past the 350 mark, or 300 mark, almost out of bounds, but kept it in bounds and hold on for 3rd. And then Chuck Knapp, I mean, they mentioned it at the pole in Iowa. He's got it on his trailer, the drive for 5. And if he keeps making passes like he did in Rockwell, Iowa, he's going to be a tough one to beat the rest of the season.
Yeah, you're seeing the wily veteran Bollinger. He's driven all kinds of mods at all sorts of levels, and he knows how to get the most out of his machine. Again, with only 3 engines on that thing, you would not think he'd be competitive in an unlimited class, but you can overdrive him, and he is not going to fall victim to that as many tracks as he's been down.
Yeah, they mentioned that in Rockwell, too, as they were looking at his pole and mentioned that, most of these guys are running 4 engines on him, and Bollinger just going with the 3, and it worked for him there in Rockwell. We'll see how it translates to the rest of the season.
Yep. Now, Chuck's got a tall order, though, trying to knock off Joe in Chapel Hill because it was the site of a pretty large pass for him 2 years ago when we were last in Marshall County. I have Joe with a 339-2, and sitting second was Grayson Shelton at 313-6. So in the Unlimiteds, I'm not sure you're going to see too many 26-foot victories, but that's what Joe put down, and that was in the midst of his early season hot streak that really just kind of sealed the deal for him as a 2019 champion. So Chuck's got to overcome that and try to figure out the track a little bit better than Joe has over the last couple seasons.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch and see if he can do it for sure. I know the track prep's been going on for 2 straight days now, still got a little over 24 hours to get this thing ready to go, but the crew here at Chapel Hill has been working hard already.
Yep. On to 4-wheel drive?
4-wheel drive.
Okay. So now let's have a look at the Rockwell 4-wheel drive class, and that is sure to be the last class in Chapel Hill as most years. So finally, let's sneak a peek at the performance of four-wheelers in Rockwell. After Tyler Cobb held the lead at 326 feet for the first 8 hooks, Ted Skelton drove the Rock into the lead at 331-5. Skelton's pass came 1 truck after Abby Mangan nearly topped Cobb with Bounty Hunter. And Ted held on to win. Finishing 3rd, the echoes of Skelton's big block had hardly stopped before Carmen Foster very nearly eclipsed him. Carmen's Foster trial fell a mere 1.5 feet shy. But somehow, despite those 2 close distances, Jake Zering managed to wedge Rule 19, his Dodge, in between them and into 2nd place. Like the Diesel Supers, the 4-wheel drives have gotten 4 hooks in during these very wet 2021 thus far. Skelton has managed to put up 30 points twice in that span with a Rockwell win, but a 9th place finish in Toma that very weirdly was the best among the Grand National finishers. Carmen, on the other hand, rescued her season from the abyss, and she vaulted from deep in the field of regulars into 8th place in the standings, right behind her dad, Rob. And Tyler Cobb's eventual 5th left him 2 points behind Skelton. Lurking in 3rd, 4 points back, are the perennial contenders and 12 times the Holman brothers. And Foreplay and Jake Zering's Rule number 19 and Fathead's Eyewear are tied for 5th.
Yeah, once again, tight points, going to be fun to watch. We'll see how big of a factor Chapel Hill can make on these guys. And really tight competition. Once again, 1.5 feet between first to third. I mean, Carmen Foster, third-generation driver. These guys now besides Foster, Ziering and Skelton in the top 4 in points. So we'll see if they can follow that up and kind of have a good run here again in Chapel Hill. And excited to see these 4-wheel drives take on the track.
Mm-hmm. You have to feel good about a couple of those teams. Tyler Cobb had himself a real nice weekend a couple of weeks ago in Dodge City. Drove his truck to second, the Bandit, the Ford, and then his dad's truck, the Hitman, to second in the Saturday session. So a pair of second places, although with different trucks for Tyler Cobb. That really gives him a strong start to the season. And Jake Ziering running Grand National, intended to, of course, last year. Of course, everybody intended to do something last year they didn't get to do. And Jake is out this year in full force with both Rule Number 19 and Fatheads Eyewear, and his son Ike is doing very well in the Region 2 circuit with Bucket List. So just some nice team efforts there all the way around.
Yep, absolutely.
So to summarize our point races to this point, 2 of our races entering Chapel Hill among the 5 divisions to pull there. 2 of those races are tied, 1 in. Okay. 1 leader holds a 1-point lead over 2 competitors, which are tied for second. Another holds a 4-point lead over 3 competitors. And then there are, and then we have a 2-point lead as well. So we have 2 ties, a 1-point lead, a 2-point lead, and a 4-point lead. Chapel Hill is often a turning point in several races. And it could definitely be this weekend where you could see a lot of leaders flip, where you can see them extend their lead and maybe become almost insurmountable heading into the month of August.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And, it seems crazy. You think about it. We're sitting here in the middle to end of July. We're looking at Enderley in the middle of September. We got basically 2 months left to go in the season. So going towards the second half of the season now, and we're looking at point leads that are less than 10 points through the top 5, 6, 7 spots. And that just shows you how big of a difference it makes when you can't have those hooks with rainouts, and just how close the competition's been all season long.
Yep. Yeah, the traditional landmarks are going by one. You have Toma, always the first big landmark of the season, and then 4 weeks later is always Chapel Hill. Of course, we got Rockwell in between there, pretty big event as well. But think of the traditional powers: Toma, Chapel Hill after 4 weeks, then 4 more weeks is Bowling Green, and 4 weeks after that is the Enderley pull-off. And that's about it for a year. So really, over the course of a 13-week span, we get an awful lot of pulling in. Of course, great pulling this weekend in Chapel Hill, great pulling next weekend in Fort Recovery and Brandenburg. Hope to get another report out there for you before those 2 events kick off with, across the 2 of them, 8 Grand National divisions in action.
Yep, absolutely. Hopefully we'll try our best to make this a weekly show, or as often as we can get it out there, but just trying something new, going to get the fans updated on what's going on and kind of use it as a preview for the next week. So,
yep. And we're reviewing this. It's certainly not too late to book your travel plans to Chapel Hill. Please consider buying yourself a ticket to get there, and that is lionssuperpole.com for all the event details. And if you need to watch it from home, please do so at ntpa.tv. That is the home of the over-the-top streaming service of the National Tractor Pullers Association.
Yep, they're getting ready to make their way on in here and get their stuff all set up so we can get that live stream up for you. And remember, tomorrow night, Friday, 7 p.m., and Saturday, 7 p.m., 2 hooks here in Chapel Hill. Yep,
both of those central times. If you're watching on the live stream, that'll be 8 p.m. Eastern.
Yep. So, all right, John.
Okay, I think we got it.